Picture this. You grab a caveman by the collar, drag him through a wormhole, and drop him in the cereal aisle of a Walmart at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. What happens in the next 60 seconds probably involves screaming, fainting, or an attempt to hunt the automatic doors. And honestly, that reaction tells us more about ourselves than it does about him. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about modern life. You didn't build it. You were just born into it, already finished, like walking into a movie halfway through and assuming you understand the plot. Every single thing you touched today, your toothbrush, your phone, the light switch, the flushing toilet, took thousands of years of trial, error, war, plague, and one very stubborn species refusing to die out. So let's do something fun. Let's actually drag a few ancient humans through time and watch modern life through their eyes. Not because it's a novelty, because it's the fastest way to realize just how insane your ordinary Tuesday actually is. We'll start easy. Food. Take a hunter-gatherer from roughly 15,000 years ago, some guy who spends 12 hours a day tracking, throwing spears, digging roots, and occasionally almost dying to a bison, and put him inside a modern grocery store. This man has never once in his life seen more food in one place than he could carry on his back. Now he's staring down an aisle that's just bread. 40 kinds of bread. White bread, wheat bread, bread shaped like a bagel, bread that's basically cake pretending to be bread. He would assume, reasonably, that this is a temple. A shrine to some harvest god so powerful that his followers no longer need to work for food, they just walk in. And it appears. And then you tell him it's actually kind of a mediocre grocery store, not even the nice one. Here's the part that should actually mess with your head. For 99% of human existence, the number one killer of humans was not disease, not war, not lions. It was starvation, or the malnutrition that comes right before it. Your ancient hunter would look at the produce section, the literal mountain of apples nobody is guarding, and assume it's a trap, or a miracle, or possibly the afterlife. Meanwhile, you're standing next to him complaining that the avocados aren't ripe yet. That gap right there between his reality and your complaint is basically the entire story of civilization in one sentence. Now let's talk about something we take so for granted we forget it's insane. Refrigeration. Ancient humans didn't get to decide when they were hungry. Food decided for them, because food rotted fast, and once it rotted, it could kill you just as easily as starving would have. Salt, smoke, ice cellars if you were lucky enough to live somewhere cold, that was the entire technological arsenal against spoilage for most of human history. Now imagine explaining a refrigerator to a Roman. You open a metal box, and inside, it's cold. Not cellar cold. Actually cold on command, in the middle of summer, in a room that isn't cold at all. A Roman engineer, and Romans were shockingly good engineers, would probably lose his mind trying to figure out where the ice comes from. You don't even know how it works. Be honest. You don't. You just open the door and expect cold milk like it's owed to you by the universe. Let's move to something a little heavier. Medicine. If you got a bacterial infection in, say, 1800 before germ theory was even widely accepted, doctors might bleed you. On purpose. With leeches or a blade, based on the idea that disease came from an imbalance of bodily humors. A broken bone could mean amputation without anesthesia. And, if you were unlucky, without ever explaining to the patient what was about to happen. Childbirth killed women constantly, not occasionally, constantly. And nobody really knew why because nobody was washing their hands between the morgue and the delivery room. That's not ancient history either. That's a couple hundred years ago. Your great-great-great-grandmother lived in that world. Now hand that same person a bottle of ibuprofen. A headache that would have been treated with prayer, bloodletting, or possibly tree panning, which is drilling a hole in someone's skull to release evil spirits, and yes, that was a real and shockingly common practice, now just goes away in 20 minutes because you swallowed a small tablet with a glass of water. You didn't even say thank you to modern medicine this morning, you just took the pill and complained the coffee wasn't hot enough. Speaking of things going away instantly, let's talk about pain in general, and here's a stat that should genuinely unsettle you. Anesthesia, real, reliable surgical anesthesia, wasn't widely used until the mid-1800s. Before that, surgery meant being held down by several strong men while someone cut into you, fully conscious, fully feeling it. Surgeons were judged by speed, not precision, because the faster they cut, the less time you spent screaming. Now you get a cavity filled, and they ask if you want extra numbing gel before the numbing shot. We have graduated to numbing the process of getting numb. Ancient humans would not understand that sentence, and honestly, if you think about it too hard, neither will you. Okay, let's lighten it up, because I promised humor, and I intend to deliver. Let's talk about hygiene. Ancient Rome actually had public bathhouses, which sounds civilized until you learn that many of them used a shared sponge on a stick, communally, for a task I will let you Google on your own time. Meanwhile, in medieval Europe, bathing regularly was sometimes considered dangerous because people believed water opened your pores and let disease sneak in. So the solution, genius solution, was to just not bathe much. Instead, they doused themselves in perfume. Versailles, the most opulent palace in human history, reportedly had a serious problem with the smell of its own occupants because everyone was drenched in floral scent instead of, soap and water. Now, take that same aristocrat and show them a modern shower. Hot water, on demand, unlimited, with pressure, and 11 different bottles promising to make your hair smell like a coconut had a baby with a waterfall. They would consider you obscenely wealthy. Royalty tier wealthy, for having warm water come out of a wall whenever you feel like it. You have that, right now, in your house. And you skipped a shower yesterday because you were tired. Let's go bigger. Let's talk transportation. For almost the entirety of human history, your top speed as a species was however fast a horse could run, and horses were a luxury most people never owned. Most humans walked everywhere, their entire lives, and a trip that today takes you 4 hours by car might have taken a medieval peasant several days on foot, assuming bandits, weather, and their own exhaustion didn't stop them first. The idea of commuting 30 miles to a job and 30 miles back in the same single day would sound to them less like a Tuesday and more like a grueling multi-day pilgrimage. Now put that peasant in an airplane. Not even a rocket, just a regular commercial jet, economy class, middle seat, the works. In their mental model of the universe, only birds fly, and birds are small and light and made for it. You are now suggesting that hundreds of humans sitting in cushioned chairs, eating pretzels, and watching a movie about talking cars are hurtling through the sky at 500 miles per hour, several miles above the clouds, and will land on the opposite side of an ocean before dinner. To them, this isn't advanced technology. This is sorcery with a beverage cart. And you're mad because the Wi-Fi's slow. Now, communication. This one's the big one, so let's really sit in it. For most of human history, if you wanted to talk to someone who lived far away, you wrote a letter, and that letter traveled by foot, horse, or ship, taking weeks or months, assuming it arrived at all, assuming the person was even still alive by the time it got there. News of a king's death could take months to reach the far edges of an empire. Wars were sometimes fought after peace had already been declared, simply because nobody told the soldiers in time. The Battle of New Orleans, one of the biggest battles of the War of 1812, happened 2 weeks after the peace treaty had already been signed. Nobody involved knew. That's not ancient history, that's barely 200 years ago, and information still moved slower than a musket ball. Now hand your ancient human, any of them, a phone. Not even explain the internet, just hand them a phone and let them watch you text someone on the other side of the planet and get a reply in 4 seconds. This isn't a letter carried by a determined horse. This is instantaneous. A thought forms in someone's head in Tokyo, and less than a second later it exists as text in your pocket in whatever city you're sitting in right now. To them, this isn't technology, this is telepathy. And you're using it to send someone a meme of a cat. And that's before you even show them the internet itself. The sum of recorded human knowledge available instantly, for free, in your pocket at all times. Every book, every language, every historical record humanity has ever bothered to write down. Accessible with your thumbs while you sit on the toilet. Ancient scholars would have killed, and I don't mean that as an exaggeration, actual historical figures have actually killed. To access even a fraction of what you have available right now, unused, while you scroll past it looking for a video of a dog doing something mildly impressive. Let's talk about light because this one gets overlooked constantly. For most of history, when the sun went down, your options were fire or darkness. Candles were expensive, oil lamps were smoky and dim, an entire household might huddle around a single flickering flame after sunset. And going outside at night in most cities meant genuine danger robbery, assault, or just breaking your leg in a pothole you couldn't see. Entire cultures built their schedules, their myths, their fears around the absolute authority of darkness after sundown. By the way, if you want to go even deeper into the secret lives of ancient humans, I just launched a full course called The Secret Lives of Ancient Humans. 10 modules, 3+ hours of content covering everything we never talk about on YouTube. What they feared, how they communicated, what hunted them, and much more. Plus an exclusive PDF guide included. Link in the description. See you inside. Now you flip a switch and the sun just comes back. On command. In every room. At the same time if you want. Ancient humans worshipped the sun. Entire religions were built around convincing it to keep coming back every morning. You have genuinely replaced a god's job with a piece of plastic on your wall, and you complain when the bulb needs replacing. Let's shift to something a little more philosophical for a second, because this next one always gets people. Time itself. Ancient humans didn't experience time the way you do. There was no 9 a.m. meeting. There was dawn, midday, dusk, and night, and your schedule bent around the sun, the seasons, and whatever your body demanded. The idea of being somewhere at a precise minute, enforced by a small machine on your wrist or in your pocket, didn't exist for most of human history because the technology to measure time that precisely, and the reason to care, simply hadn't arrived yet. Now imagine explaining to a medieval farmer that in the future, humans will voluntarily let a small device buzz them awake at a specific number, then feel genuine anxiety, actual stress hormones if they are 4 minutes late to sit in a chair for a job. He would ask, reasonably, if you're all being punished for something. And honestly, some days aren't we? Let's talk entertainment because this is where the humor really writes itself. For most of human history, entertainment meant storytelling around a fire, maybe some music if someone in the tribe was talented, and occasionally a traveling performer if you lived near a trade route. That was it. That was the ceiling. Now show a Viking a smartphone loaded with an app that contains literally every movie, every song, every show ever produced by humanity, accessible instantly, and also lets you watch strangers play video games, and also lets you order food to your exact location without speaking to a human being, and also occasionally shows you an advertisement for tooth whitening strips. He would not know what to focus on first. He'd probably assume you were some kind of emperor, commanding infinite jesters, infinite bards, infinite storytellers, all trapped inside a slab of glass, performing for you on demand. And you'd be sitting there saying there's nothing good to watch. There's a version of this conversation that gets genuinely dark for a second, and I think it's worth sitting in. Briefly, because it reframes everything else. Life expectancy. For most of human history, if you made it past childhood and that alone was a genuine coin flip in a lot of eras, you might reasonably expect to live into your 40s, 50s if you were fortunate, wealthy, and disease didn't find you first. Childbirth killed mothers routinely. Basic infections killed the young and old constantly. A cut on your hand could become the thing that ends your life because nobody understood bacteria yet. Now, in the modern world, average life expectancy in most developed countries sits comfortably in the high 70s to low 80s. That's not a minor upgrade. That's nearly doubling the length of a human life in roughly 2 centuries, mostly because of clean water, vaccines, sanitation, and modern medicine. An ancient human wouldn't be impressed by your phone. First, they'd be impressed that you're allowed to just exist for twice as long as they were ever guaranteed. Okay, back to the humor, because we've earned it. Let's talk about bureaucracy, because ancient humans absolutely had this too, and it's oddly comforting. Ancient Egypt had scribes whose entire job was tax paperwork. Ancient Rome had census records, permits, and legal disputes over property lines that could drag on for years. Somewhere in ancient Mesopotamia, there's a literal clay tablet complaint, one of the oldest written documents in human history, that is just a guy furiously writing to a copper merchant because the copper he received was bad quality and the delivery was late. That tablet exists. It's in a museum. Human civilization invented writing, and one of the very first things we used it for was a strongly worded customer complaint. So when you're on hold with customer service, listening to elevator music, filling out a form that asks for the same information 3 separate times, understand that you are not experiencing a modern inconvenience. You are participating in one of humanity's oldest and proudest traditions. The ancient Mesopotamians would be proud. Furious, but proud. Let's close in on something a little more grounded, and then we'll wrap this whole thing up. Money. Ancient economies ran mostly on barter, trade, and eventually coinage. Physical, heavy, metal coins that you had to carry, count, and physically hand to another human being while looking them in the eye. Now you tap a piece of plastic against a small machine, or wave a phone near it, and money, actual real value, transfers instantly, invisibly, from your account to theirs, without either of you touching a single coin. Ancient humans traded goats for grain. You just bought a coffee with a piece of glass and a wireless signal, and didn't think about it for even 1 second. Here's the thing that ties this whole video together, and I want you to actually sit with this instead of just nodding along. Every single ancient human we've talked about today, the hunter-gatherer, the Roman engineer, the medieval peasant, the Viking, the Mesopotamian tax scribe, every one of them lived through genuine hardship that you will likely never experience. Starvation, untreated pain, total darkness after sunset, death from a scratch, losing children routinely, sometimes multiple children, and being expected to simply continue on. And yet, they built things. They built irrigation, writing, medicine, mathematics, art, law, all of it, brick by brick, generation by generation, with none of the tools you have, so that eventually, thousands of years later, you could stand in a grocery store complaining that the self-checkout machine won't recognize your coupon. That's not a criticism of you, by the way. It's actually the opposite. It means it worked. The entire multi-thousand-year project of human civilization was, in a sense, designed to get you here, comfortable enough, safe enough, fed enough, that your biggest daily problem is a slow Wi-Fi connection or a coupon glitch instead of a bear at the edge of camp. That's not laziness. That's the finish line. That's what they were working toward, whether they knew it or not. So next time your phone buzzes with a notification you don't care about, or the AC kicks on because the room got a little warm, or you microwave leftovers instead of hunting your own dinner, take 1 second, just one, and actually notice it. Not with guilt, with something closer to amazement. Because somewhere behind you, in a very long, very difficult, very human chain, someone was cold, hungry, scared of the dark, and dying young, so that eventually you wouldn't have to be. And if an ancient human ever did walk through that wormhole and land in your kitchen, watched you complain about the Wi-Fi while standing in front of a machine that makes ice appear out of thin air next to a box that keeps food from rotting, under a light that replaced the sun, holding a device that lets you talk to anyone on Earth instantly, they wouldn't see an inconvenience. They'd see a miracle you've simply gotten too comfortable to notice. So go notice it. Just for today. And maybe thank the Wi-Fi.